On my wedding day, my fiancé vanished. Harrison hurried over to say he'd found a handwritten letter in the house. The letter was perfectly clear. Mason was suffering from severe pre-wedding anxiety and had flown abroad to heal. Later, when he heard I was pregnant, he rushed back. "Ah, Raven, I'm ready now. Whatever happens, I can't let my own issues leave this child illegitimate. This time I've come back to give you a brand new wedding." "No need. The child already has a name, Vance. Julian's child." His whole body shook. Julian was his best friend. "Raven, when you read this letter, please forgive me for leaving without saying goodbye." The moment I saw the handwritten letter Mason had left, my head exploded into white noise. The gossip swirling around felt like thousands of ants crawling over me, biting. People from different worlds. Of course Mason dumped her. If this wedding had actually happened, the whole East Coast elite would have laughed. The anxiety bit is fake, coming to his senses is real. A nameless bastard child trying to claw up the Ellsworth branch, delusional. I bet Mason planned it, using the moment to announce she's not worthy. This is what happens when you don't know your place. The letter claimed he had pre-wedding anxiety and needed to recuperate in Nordheim. I dimly remembered him mentioning Nordheim before. Wasn't Sabrina studying there? I didn't dare finish the thought. Holding the attached medical report, my hands wouldn't stop trembling. One of Mason's buddies elbowed forward. "Sis, the whole crew knows Mason's head hasn't been right lately. Don't push him so hard. Give the guy time. Once he's patched himself up, he'll come home. The Ellsworth coffers are deep, throwing another blowout wedding later will be cake. If you're still mad, make him cough up another bride price gift, you come out ahead, haha." I skewered them with a sideways glare, then scanned the groomsmen and realized they were all second-tier friends, not a single oath brother in sight. Clearly this left at the altar scandal wasn't spur of the moment, it had been choreographed. I set the letter down. Harrison whispered that Lydia was waiting in a back salon and wanted me. The instant I stepped in I saw her face was calm. I swept a quick look over her. On the Ellsworth's big wedding day she'd picked an outfit barely formal, nothing like Lydia's usual style. She scraped the lid of her teacup, the squeal setting my teeth on edge. "You've read Mason's letter. The Ellsworths haven't wronged you, you drove him away. You've already shown your face in public, so you're half an Ellsworth now. While Mason is gone, don't let me catch you breaking rules. If you tarnish our name, no matter how hard Mason begs later, I'll never let you through our door." Before I could answer, the door burst open. "Mom, what are you doing here?" My mother squeezed my hand, then turned to Lydia. "Ellsworth, after what Mason did today, doesn't he owe our family an apology?" Lydia slammed her cup down. "I haven't blamed you for raising a defective daughter, and you put on airs and blame me?" "Sterling, oh, pardon, Brown, parents should model decent behavior. I've heard Raven's father also evaporated without warning, and afterward you reinvented yourself as Brown." Lydia stood, raking her gaze from my mother's hair to her shoes. "Bad blood is hard to overcome, I'm only offering Raven a friendly warning." I shook with rage and pulled my mother behind me. "Aunt Ellsworth, Mason is the one who fled. By your logic, does the Ellsworth line carry an irresponsibility gene?" Lydia hadn't expected me to bite back. She snatched her teacup and hurled it to the carpet, then jabbed a finger at my face. "How dare you call it fleeing? You hounded him into exile. If anything happens to Mason overseas, the Ellsworths will make you pay." I started to retort, but Mother yanked me out. I knew she was gentle by nature. Against a wolf like Lydia a rabbit doesn't survive. Better to cut our losses. Outside the Grand, Mason's best friend Julian texted me an address and nothing else. It was Apex, Mason's favorite club. I had the driver take my mother home, then hailed a cab. Inside, I was waved through, a server even escorted me to a private salon. The door stood ajar. Sure enough, Mason was there, an alluring girl tracing his tie with one crimson fingertip. My fists clenched. I almost stormed in, but Julian, spotting me through the crack, coughed into his hand. Mason, he asked, aren't you afraid Raven finds out and gets furious? Mason pulled the bottle from his lips and draped an arm around the girl. Relax. Raven's IQ won't crack it. The slur in his voice said he was blind drunk. Even if she does, who'd want her after me? Our circle marries its own kind. I was willing to lower myself and make her the glittering Ellsworth. Her whole family should kowtow in gratitude. She'd throw a tantrum over this little glitch? Where's the decency? Besides, I've got anxiety, remember? Did you see her bawling at the altar? She's terrified something happened to me, no time to wonder if I'm faking. When I reappear safe and sound, I won't even have to try, she'll forgive me. The room erupted in cheers. That's our boss. What woman gives up the Ellsworth crown over a hiccup? Julian pressed, when do you leave? Dawn flight. I'm finally getting a lead on Sabrina after 5 years. I don't care if it's real, I have to check. If I feel nothing for her, I'll come back to Raven. It's not like I jilted her on purpose. But if Sabrina and I still burn for each other, how could I betray my White Moonlight's reputation? Laughter soaked the salon, except for Julian, head bowed, texting me, go. He's leaving for the airport soon. Old me would have barged in and dragged Mason into a screaming showdown. Instead, I simply let go of the doorframe. I knew that any scene I made now would be pointless. I wandered until I reached Riverside. Clusters of people blurred. 5 years together. I'd thought his steady walk toward me meant he'd cast aside pedigree and pride. Turns out he's no different from the rest. Years of indoctrination can't be overturned by a powerless woman. My beauty couldn't be stolen, but once the novelty faded, it wasn't enough to hold him. Whether from heartbreak or the river mist, a chill curled through me. I hugged myself, staring at the water, until someone draped an overcoat over my shoulders. Its lingering warmth made me jump. I turned, Julian. How did you find me? Julian stayed silent. Thank you. No thanks needed. Just dispensing justice. He struck a Superman pose and I actually laughed. In my memory Julian was always austere and taciturn, yet tonight he'd kept prompting Mason, protecting me. Why are you helping me? Julian hesitated, then spoke slowly. I know you're cornered. I gave him a questioning look. If this dynastic marriage collapses, your biggest fear is for your mother, right? You could walk away, but you're afraid Donald will punish her. The Chens bet everything on the Ellsworth alliance. If the wedding dies, so do their business favors. Rumor says partners are already cutting ties to curry favor with the Ellsworths. Julian had punctured every bubble of dread inside me. Had he investigated just for me? I couldn't deny it. After Father's unexplained vanishing, relatives carved up our assets and threw Mother and me out. The Sterling Empire crumbled under rivals. Mother remarried Donald as his second wife to raise me. The Chens are small stock, I'm only the stepchild baggage of a concubine, exactly why the Ellsworths sneer at my pedigree. How could I just walk away after everything that happened? Let my mother bear all the pressure alone? I was rubbing my forehead, completely at a loss, when Julian blurted out, Raven, marry me. What? I'd sooner doubt my own ears than believe those words had come from Julian. Even the Ellsworth family tiptoed around the Vance dynasty in Riverdale society. Relax. I know you don't feel anything for me. We can have a paper marriage. The silence that followed was deafening. It's the best option. If you won't think of yourself, think of your mom. Once you're a Vance, the Chen family will treat her with respect. I knew it wasn't just the best choice, it was the only one. Imagining the spite my mother might face when the dynastic marriage collapsed, I bit my lip and finally agreed. Julian and I picked up the marriage certificate the next morning. Lydia's single condition, total blackout. No leaks. After all, my extravagant wedding to Mason had been yesterday's headline, and under Vance pressure the Chen family would keep their mouths shut. At the Vance estate I had my own room. Julian never entered, only pausing at the door to ask how I was settling in, whether I needed anything, telling me to tell Harrison and he'd have it arranged. Polite, distant, not a hint of trespass. Half a month under that roof passed easily. One day he said he wanted to adopt an abandoned baby a friend had irresponsibly left behind, and asked if I would be the child's mother. I'd always melted at the sight of kids. I'd even fantasized about the children Mason and I would have. I said yes immediately. Like an excited boy, Julian dashed out, announcing he would bring her home at once. The little girl was 4, heartbreakingly pretty. The first thing Julian did was summon the family doctor for the most thorough exam. The verdict was cruel, congenital heart disease. Julian understood at once why she'd been discarded. The child was good as gold, playing alone without a tear. She began calling me mommy, and we bonded deeply. When the surgery failed anyway, grief slammed us both. I couldn't pull myself out of it. Julian shelved his work and stayed by my side. I still dream of the last thing she told me before the operation: I hope mommy gets a new baby soon to love you for me. Half a month later I sat down with Julian and said I wanted a child. He looked startled. Raven, think this through. Don't act on impulse. We agreed this is a paper marriage. Having a baby will tie you down. Our deal was to protect your mom. Besides, what if Mason suddenly comes back? I'd always been decisive. I wouldn't voice something so huge if I hadn't decided. Julian, I've thought it through. If you're willing. We're legally husband and wife. A child is the logical next step. His brows knitted. I could see the worry. Julian, the day I chose to marry you, Mason and I were finished for good. With my consent, Julian moved into my room. I assumed conception would take time. Babies arrive on their own schedule, but inside 2 weeks I was pregnant. What I didn't expect, once my belly began to swell, was a text from Mason demanding answers. Walls have ears. One of his friends must have spotted me. Raven, you're pregnant and didn't tell me? I'm flying back right now. Wait for me at home, both of you. I learned Mason had returned when Julian received an invitation to a dinner in Mason's honor. Julian suggested hosting it at the Vance Hotel. The private salon was wired so I could watch everything. One of Mason's buddies raised a glass to kick things off. Bro, you look like a man on top of the world. Congrats on impending fatherhood. The rest feigned surprise. Mason had packed on weight. When he grinned, fat rippled across his cheeks. Thanks for keeping this under wraps while I was away. Raven's pregnant and can't handle stress, so after tonight zip it, got it? He pressed a finger to his lips. Better to break 10 temples than ruin one marriage, right? They all smirked and toasted the scumbag. Only Julian, suppressing laughter, had veins bulging at his temples. So, bro, Raven's been pregnant a while. You're awfully late. Aren't you afraid someone else will claim daddy duty? Blame Sabrina, she refused to let me leave. You know how it is, absence makes the heart grow fonder. She just got back from our honeymoon, and I had to sweet talk her for a month before she'd give me 4 weeks back here. Julian asked, planning to stay for good? Hell yes. After Raven gives birth I'll bring Sabrina home. You all know Raven and I go way back. This kid is the fruit of our love. I'm not letting them rot on the street. Another friend chimed in, bro, you ditched her at the altar. Sure she'll take you back? No matter how pissed she is, she won't deny our kid a father. I'll splash some cash, take her shopping, buy her stuff, she'll come around. Mason drained his glass and slammed it down. You don't get it. Raven was desperate to marry me. If I didn't have leverage I'd never have left. Women treat love like life itself. I'll give her a real wedding and guarantee she'll never bring up my little disappearing act again. Making her Ellsworth will shut her up. Julian glanced up at the camera in the ceiling. Inside the security room I met his eyes. The chorus of sycophants made my stomach lurch. After a few more rounds Mason was blind drunk. I left the monitor. The hotel manager escorted me to the salon. When I pushed the door open they froze. Finally someone tried a joke. Sis, here to collect your man so soon? Hearing that, Mason's shock flipped to smugness. Raven, how'd you know I just landed? You can see I'm drinking with the boys. I know you're dying to see me, but show a little patience. When I'm in a good mood, I'll come home. Spook me and my anxiety might make me bolt again. I gave a cold laugh. Mason, the day you vanished, I never got to say goodbye. Let me say it now, we're done. Don't ever come near me again. He staggered up, outlining my face with a shaky finger. Break up? Stop the drama. You're carrying my kid, think you can afford to dump me? I slammed the table, rage choking me. Julian, you're sober, take her home before she ruins our night. Knowing Mason was too wasted to feel a knife, Julian rested a calming hand on my back and guided me out. The next day Mason texted, asking to meet and talk. I wanted closure. He showed up, snapped his fingers, and had 999 long stem roses carried in. I'd never gotten romantic gestures from him, he always claimed they were pointless. Turns out I simply wasn't worth the effort. Apparently foreign air had made him sentimental. He tried to step inside, I blocked the door. Not convenient. Say what you need to hear. Raven, I flew back to give you and the baby legitimacy. The child is an Ellsworth, carries Ellsworth blood. And I'll give you the wedding you deserve. I stared without speaking. Relax, my doctor says my anxiety is under control. I won't run again. Mason, you've got some nerve. Don't you hear how ridiculous you sound? He opened his mouth, swallowed the retort. I've handed you the ladder, Raven. Even if you won't think of yourself, think of the baby. Take the win, don't try playing the child for status game, or else. I couldn't help laughing. Or else what? Go on, finish the sentence. Mason ground his teeth so hard the sentence still refused to leave his tongue. The baby isn't yours, so you don't have to give it a name, its real father will take care of that. None of this is Ellsworth's concern. Instead, Mason's brows relaxed, he began tap-tapping the oak door with one lazy finger. Raven, stop performing for me. I know you're still furious that I left without saying goodbye, but I left a voicemail. I flew out because of my anxiety disorder. I didn't abandon you on purpose. Some nights I can barely breathe. I kept quiet because I didn't want you to worry. When I still said nothing, he leaned in and clamped a hand around my wrist. Raven, I need you to remember your place and make allowances for what I'm going through. Right now you should be worried about me, not sulking. You have no idea what these months have cost me. I'm back now, and you ought to treasure that. I yanked free. Let go of me. The shout startled him, his fingers sprang open. Seeing softness wasn't working, he tried brute force. Raven, my family already chewed me out over this, consider that your pound of flesh. Know when to quit. If you keep throwing tantrums and I actually walk away, you'll sob until you're dry. His obsession convinced me there was no point talking. I shoved him toward the corridor. Mason's gaze suddenly shot past me into the room, his body froze. Before he could recover, I slammed the door in his face. When I turned, Julian was pulling on his shirt, no doubt the naked flash Mason had caught. The next morning Julian took me to the office so I could learn the ropes of the new Sterling Vance subsidiary. Once the baby arrived he planned to hand me Lakeshore's branch outright. He stepped into a board meeting and left his phone with me. When things quieted down I saw a text from Mason, Julian, Raven's really mad this time. You've got to help me figure out how to calm her down. I'm on my way to Vance, wait for me. I had barely set the phone down when the assistant ushered Mason in. Surprise flicked across his face when he saw me. What are you doing here? He cut me off, grinning, finger poking toward my nose. You followed me. Begged Julian for my schedule so you could ambush me and make up. What the hell are you babbling about? Caught, so now you're angry? He collapsed onto the sofa and ordered the assistant to bring coffee. Raven, since you've come this far, I'll give you one more chance. I've talked to the family, the wedding's March 9th. Tight timeline, but it's an auspicious day. Clear your calendar and start preparing. I'll need to approve your wedding gown, your taste is questionable. This is a high-profile event. I won't have people snickering that the future Ellsworth looks tacky. After we marry, every word you utter reflects on the Ellsworth brand, so think twice. I tuned him out, focusing on the date. March 9th? You really don't know what that day is? His cockiness dimmed, he straightened. Raven, I know you still resent that date, but your father vanished years ago, time to let go. Once you marry in, my dad becomes yours. I glared daggers at his back. He pivoted, draping himself over the sofa. Learn to see the bigger picture. The Ellsworths pick the date. If gossip starts that the new Ellsworth is already dictating terms, we become a laughingstock. Who says I'm marrying you? Mason stalked forward. I've told you 100 times, this baby isn't yours. Stop deluding yourself, Mason. He threw his head back and laughed. Not mine? Then whose? Some random stranger's bastard child you picked up off the street? The child has a name and a place, Julian's. Future heir of the Vance dynasty. Every word rang clear. Mason's grin iced over. After a beat he licked his lips and asked, half teasing, still joking, right? I wouldn't joke about the Vance family, you know their power. His expression turned grave, he started to probe, just then Julian breezed in, smirk still playing on his lips. Why are the women in my office today? He rubbed his temple and blurted at Mason. Only when he stepped aside did I notice the woman behind him, unchanged from the photos I'd seen. Mason's eyes bulged, not nearly wide enough. Why you, how are you back? I arranged for you to wait. He shot me a panicked glance, gulped, and swallowed the rest. Sabrina hurled herself at him, tiny fists drumming his chest. I missed you so much I flew in to surprise you. Don't you like surprises? Mason began to unravel, stray hairs drooping over his forehead. You just landed, you must be whipped. Donald will drive you to the Grand. He scooped her bag off the desk and tried to steer her out. No, I go wherever you go. I missed you. Julian stood behind me, hands in pockets, eyebrows dancing a private commentary. Sabrina wrapped her arms around Mason. I've been puking since I got off the plane, maybe it's jet lag, maybe the food. My head still spinning. She rested her cheek on his chest and slid me a taunting glance. Or maybe I'm pregnant. The word hung in the air for me. At pregnant, Mason hesitated, then finally hugged her. He agreed to take her to Hayes. Julian, you saw it, Sabrina flew all this way, sick because of me. I can't abandon her. Julian covered a smirk and gave a tiny nod. On his way out Mason tossed over his shoulder, give Raven a ride home, she is carrying my child, after all. Authority rang in his voice, a claim of ownership, but Julian and I both knew sovereignty wasn't his, any declaration was hollow. After work Julian told his assistant to cancel every dinner. He said he was taking me somewhere. The assistant looked stricken. Vance, you're scheduled with Fairview Group, Julian lifted my bag. Tell them you cleared it on my orders. I wondered where we were headed. The car raced along the interstate, then veered onto an exit into the countryside. I pillowed my head on his jacket and slept most of the way. When I stepped out, déjà vu hit, and derelict lot swallowed by weeds. I recognized the pale green bench, where I used to cry after my father vanished. How could Julian possibly know? I glanced up, he tugged me toward the bench and crouched, drawing out a packet of scented tissues. He didn't hand them to me, he placed them carefully beside me, then sprinted to the far end of the court. Watching him run, memory struck, the chubby boy who used to leave tissues for me here? Julian? That was you? What, don't I look the part? He pulled the same silly face he'd made the last time I'd cried here. Your diet worked wonders. Julian chuckled. How crazy is it that you know Mason? He's not that important, if it weren't for you. Before I could finish, he produced a small velvet box from his inside pocket. Raven, I know our marriage was rushed. Now we have a child and a certificate, but I still owe you a proper proposal. This is where we first met. His voice cracked, he exhaled. Julian dropped to one knee, words tumbling out, "Raven, will you marry me?" I covered my mouth, looked away, and laughed. A street lamp blinked off, the reflected light in Julian's eyes dimmed. His upheld hand trembled. I turned back and stretched out my fingers. Startled, he fumbled the ring free and slid it on, exactly like the flustered kid who used to bolt when I glanced at him. Julian said next he'd take me to a charity gala. She asked if we could go public with our relationship at the gala. I said yes. One afternoon, after a prenatal checkup, Lydia asked to see me. Since I couldn't get through to Mason, I figured talking to Lydia might help. She had never approved of me as a daughter-in-law anyway. I assumed she would come alone, so I invited her to the house. I hadn't expected Mason to tag along. "Raven, I hear you still haven't forgiven Mason?" "Ellsworth, Mason and I have already broken," Lydia cut me off before I could finish. "Raven, you've created a scandal big enough to sink the Ellsworth name, and you dare act as if we owe you? Now you want to bite the hand that fed you? The word breakup isn't yours to say to Mason. We're both women, I know exactly what you're plotting." Lydia sat ramrod straight, flicking an invisible speck from her collar with one manicured finger. I glanced at Mason. He hung his head behind her, silent, shrinking the same way he always did when Lydia trashed me to my face. "Ellsworth, believe what you want, but Mason and I are over. That's a fact. If you prefer to call it a breakup, be my guest, it means nothing to me." My hand drifted protectively to my belly. Lydia folded her arms, eyes dripping disdain. "Raven, know when to quit. If you weren't pregnant, I wouldn't allow Mason to give you another wedding. Don't be stupid. Let me be clear, if you deliver a useless girl, dump it on your good-for-nothing mother. Don't waste Ellsworth resources. I'm not sexist, but a daughter might turn out like you and that mother of yours." I knew the insult she was dying to spit. Furious, I shot to my feet and pointed at her. "Speak of my child with respect. I'm telling you for the last time, this baby is not an Ellsworth, and I will not marry Mason. We're done. Please leave. Now." Lydia sprang up, grabbed my arm, and yanked. "You say no? This is Mason's child, too. Come with me for a paternity test. If it's not Ellsworth blood, you'll abort it, today." I tugged back, terrified of hurting the baby, too cautious to use real force. In the scuffle Mason stepped between us, shouting, "Raven, don't you dare hurt my mother." I couldn't break free. In desperation I slapped Lydia hard across the face. Mason shoved me to the floor. Julian burst in seconds too late, blood was already seeping down my legs. Mason saw Julian like a lifeline. Covering his eyes from the blood, he stammered, "Julian, get Raven to the hospital, quick." Julian shoved them aside, lifted me, and sprinted downstairs. Mason trailed us to the hospital. When Hayes said the baby had survived, he exhaled, "My son's a fighter, true Ellsworth blood." Even the doctor rolled her eyes. In the car I had whispered to Julian, "What if I'd lost it?" He held me with one arm, pressing my palm to his cheek with the other. "Don't think about that. All that matters is that you're safe." Suddenly I remembered the charity gala. The gala's the day after tomorrow. Can I still go like this? Julian started to whisper his answer when Mason cut in, panicked. "Charity gala? Raven, how do you even know about that?" He shot Julian a glare. "This isn't some cocktail hour. A reclusive billionaire is hosting, every power player in Riverdale will be there. The Ellsworths only landed an invitation through the Vance family. A woman in your situation can't show up, you'll disgrace the Vances." Realizing he'd sounded too harsh, he softened. "Besides, you need rest. Think of the baby, don't be reckless." Before leaving he warned Julian not to give me the invitation, he was taking Sabrina instead. Julian's dimples deepened, he looked like a man waiting for the curtain to rise. Mason added that he'd be busy helping Sabrina choose gowns and makeup and asked Julian to take good care of her. Julian patted his shoulder. "Rest easy, Ellsworth. I'll look after her, properly. Then he shot me a smile loaded with unspoken promise. Julian told me the gala had been postponed so I could recover. I should focus on getting stronger. A week later I walked into the ballroom. Julian was one of the headline patrons. Knowing I hated small talk, he let me roam while he finished receptions. Today we would announce our marriage. He had flown my mother in for the moment. We had barely toured the room when Lydia appeared with Mason and Sabrina. Lydia spotted me first. "How did you crash this event?" Seeing my mother behind me, her lip curled. "You came, fine, but you dragged your mother? This crowd is above her pay grade." Mason checked that no acquaintance was watching, then pulled me aside. "What are you doing? I told you to stay away. Don't imagine pregnancy gives you license to make scenes. Take your mom and leave, now." Sabrina drifted over, smile unreadable. "Raven, don't misread this. I'm only Mason's arm candy tonight, prop, not partner. I knew Julian and I would step on stage soon. I wouldn't start a brawl." I simply glared. When I neither answered nor retreated, Lydia turned on my mother. "No shame in you, but at least save your daughter's face. Can't you feel you're not welcome? Stop groveling." Mason nudged me, voice low and urgent. "Go, before you wreck things. Know what matters, don't sabotage tonight." A guest recognized Mason, glanced at me, and grinned. "Ellsworth? Bringing Raven tonight, bold move." The jab struck Lydia harder than Mason. She barked for security. "I'm not here for the Ellsworths," I told the guards, shielding my mother. "You have no right to throw us out." Lydia burst into shrill laughter. "Since you admit you're not here for us, scram." She waved, guards closed in. Conversations halted, eyes swiveled to the spectacle. Lydia basked in the attention. I shoved the nearest guard aside and, in front of the entire crowd, slapped Mason hard. Lydia shrieked, snatched a fork from a table, and lunged at my face. A voice cracked like a whip. "Stop, are you out of your mind?" Julian shot through the circle, clamping Lydia's wrist until she squealed. Mason gaped. "Julian, let go of my mother. Grab her, Raven." Julian gave a slight twist before releasing. Lydia stumbled backward, almost falling. He wiped his hand with a napkin, then took mine gently. "Why would I grab her? She's my wife." Mason stepped forward, features twisted. "Wife? Have you lost it? I know you want to play hero, but choose the stage. She's carrying my child, what will people think?" I pushed Mason back, shielding Julian. "I've told you, this baby bears the Vance name. Stop lying to yourself." Mason's eyes drilled into me, teeth clenched. "You'd falsify a father for the sake of face?" Julian snapped his fingers. An assistant thrust forward a tray, our marriage certificate, the maternity report. He shoved them under Mason's nose. "See? The child has nothing to do with you." Lydia, stunned, pivoted toward my mother, venom spilling. "Look at this disgrace, you've ruined the Ellsworths." Julian slipped between us, hands in pockets. "Lydia, the only one shaming the Vance family tonight is you. Can you afford that?" The color drained from Lydia's face, her bravado collapsed. Forcing a sickly smile, she croaked, "You and Mason are best friends, how could you steal his fiancée?" Julian's smile was dazzling. "A woman who can hand out scandal shouldn't be shocked when it comes home." From his jacket he drew a thick stack of photographs and flung them into the air. Several drifted to my feet, images of Lydia locked in passionate kisses with men who were decidedly not her husband. Sure enough, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. Lydia stared at the photographs scattered across the floor and threw herself down to gather them, but there were too many to collect. Once her husband stepped into the room, she simply flattened herself over the snapshots like a dog, hair wild and tangled. "Liguelon. You old shameless thing. You dared pull this under my nose. Just wait until we get home, family discipline will be served." The old man's heart had never been strong, now he pressed a hand to his chest, wheezing. Mason eased himself deeper into the crowd, trying to reach Julian, yet he never quite dared open his mouth. At that moment Julian took my hand, bowed politely to my mother, and strode toward the stage. His parents were already waiting. They descended 2 steps to greet us. Julian declared that, on so important an evening, we had invited a mystery guest to announce the joyous alliance of our 2 families. That guest was the reclusive billionaire everyone had been whispering about. An elderly man in a silk tang suit, leaning on a dragon-headed cane, entered through the grand doors, measured step after step. My mother clamped a hand over her mouth, tears streaming, and sank to the floor. My own arms lost their strength. Julian caught me as I swayed. His mother lifted my mother gently up. The old man's face was carved from granite. Every footfall made our hearts skip. My father? I flicked my eyes to Julian. He gave a small nod. Dad opened his arms and folded my mother and me against his chest for a long moment, then released us with another nod. He turned to the ballroom and, in a voice that carried to the rafters, proclaimed both his return and the dynastic marriage. Applause thundered without end. Overnight I had become one of the most powerful heiresses in Riverdale. In the corner Mason and Lydia were being jostled by the crowd, jaws sagging. Sabrina scented disaster and bolted, only to be blocked by security head stationed at every exit. After his speech my father escorted us to where the Ellsworth family stood. They hung their heads, fingers nodding and unnodding. Lydia darted one glance at my mother and tried to burrow into the parquet. Julian barked, "What's the matter, blind or mute? Forgot how to greet people?" My father tipped Mason's chin up with the silver head of his cane, the tender grandfather of moments ago replaced by cold steel. "You cheated on my daughter? You think you're worthy?" Mason's father stepped forward. "Sterling, there may be a misunderstanding. Young people joke around these days, why don't we let them sort it out?" One glare from Dad snapped his mouth shut. He shrank backward. Lydia shot Mason a frantic look toward his white moonlight. Mason seized the lifeline and jabbed a finger at Sabrina. "She seduced me. I ran because of her. Everything is that witch's fault." Sabrina threw caution aside and faced Julian, spilling Mason's true plan. He said once Raven had the baby he'd separate them forever, then he could control her through the child. He said he could do whatever he wanted after that. My breath froze. Mason screamed that it was a lie. Sabrina collapsed at my feet, clutching my hand, weeping. "Raven, Mason planned it all. I'm a victim too, please, have mercy." My father roared, "Cur. Don't soil my daughter's hand. Security, the hand that touched her, take it." He slashed his cane through the air. Guards dragged Sabrina away, her shrieks echoing down the corridors. Trembling, Mason appealed to Julian. "We were brothers, talk to your uncle for me." "You know this isn't all my fault." Julian seized his chin, eyes like chips of ice. "Guess who told him what you did? Even if he forgave you, after the grief you gave my wife, why should I?" He spat full in Mason's face. Mason stood slack, finally realizing Julian had wanted me all along. "I asked you to watch over her, and you took it seriously?" Julian smiled thinly. "Thank you for the opportunity." Every bone seemed to dissolve. Mason crumpled to the floor, eyes unfocused, waiting for sentence to be passed. My father decreed that tonight was a charity gala and a night of reunion. No blood would spill on this marble. Guards would keep Mason under watch until the last guest left. Lydia begged my mother, clasping her knees. "Brown, Sterling, I was wrong, I apologize, I'm not even human, please, spare my son." My mother answered quietly, "I'm kind, Ellsworth, not stupid." While my husband was missing and every rival circled the Sterling carcass, I raised my daughter alone. Left without hope, Lydia crawled toward me. "Raven, we were almost family. One night as husband and wife means 100 days of grace. Don't abandon Mason." "Funny," I said. "Last week you claimed my Sterling genes were too tainted for your glorious house." I glanced at my father. "Said I'd bring shame to the Ellsworth name, remember?" Dad leveled his gaze. Did you? Terrified, Lydia began slapping her own face in penance. We turned away. Dad ordered the orchestra to resume. She dared not stop while camera flashes exploded, every lens capturing the Ellsworths' disgrace. By tomorrow the whole city would be laughing. All evening, Riverdale's elite rushed to swear they barely knew the Ellsworths. Julian asked me to share the first dance. His tenderness shimmered in his eyes as I leaned to his ear. You orchestrated this, from the night you sent me to the private salon. If Mason weren't rotten, no scheme would have worked. The process doesn't matter, the outcome does. When the music ended, his friends hooted. No wonder President Vance stayed single, his heart was already taken. Julian kissed me, I answered shyly. Across the floor Mason watched, sliding down the wall, slapping himself again and again. Julian and I looked away together. Anyone who makes you shed a tear will repay it 1,000-fold. He had known all along that I longed to find my father, while Mother and I had neither money nor influence. When I begged Mason for help he had shrugged. If Dad were alive he'd have come back, if not, why search? That night I learned Julian had never stopped hiring investigators. That Dad was discovered hours before our engagement announcement felt like destiny. Reading the exhaustion on my face, Julian offered to take me home. As we passed Mason, he broke past his guards and lunged. Julian's boot sent him sprawling. Mason snarled and charged again. Julian flipped him through the fire door and kicked him down the stairwell. Back at the Vance estate we learned that after Dad's accident he had wandered abroad with amnesia, building a fortune larger than the one he'd left behind. Once his memory returned he'd scoured the states for us in vain, until Julian's detectives traced him. Dad had never remarried. Overnight I became the sole Sterling heir. And for me, Julian chose to take his wife's surname, something the aloof billionaire had once sworn he would never do. Sterling Vance United could crush the Ellsworths like ants. Their bankruptcy followed. Mason accidentally lost the use of his legs, Sabrina her hands and her face. Lydia's affair surfaced, and before the creditors swept in her husband expelled her. She took to faking traffic injuries until jail caught up with her. Not long after, Mason wheeled himself to our gate, pleading for forgiveness. Didn't you claim anxiety? You need treatment. On my word he was committed to Riverdale. Julian and I had a daughter who has his eyes. The day she was born he resigned every directorship to become a full-time father and my quiet fortress. Thank you for listening. On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate this tale? If you enjoyed it, hit like, share with friends, and tell us your thoughts below. Subscribe to our channel for more stories. See you next time.